Welcome to A Matter of Music. I'm Wisner-Johnson.
And I'm Beth Wisner-Jahnsen.
And we are here to provide tools, education, and...
Let's start over again.
Start over. What is it? Tools, education, ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Starting over. Sorry, Miles.
Take two.
Welcome to A Matter of Music. I'm Wisner-Johnson.
And I'm Beth Wisner-Jahnsen.
And we are here to provide tools, ideas, and education to help you navigate this crazy business of music. So welcome today. We're going to talk about publishing. It's going to be an overview. Beth has been studying again, even though, as I always say, she knows all of this, but even when you know it,
I get confused, like which license goes with what for the thing, and it's very confusing.
If you're not a publisher doing this every day, even with us, we've been in it for decades, it can get very, very hard. So I'm so glad you're here today because you're going to learn some things and take notes. And also on that note, I want to say that you can find us at amatterofmusic.com. We have classes. We will be doing classes on this subject. And I've been thinking about what that class is going to be like. And one thing I want to do is walk publishers through all of the places that you can sign up, get everything in order. There's so many now, but we want to actually let you know what those places will help you do and help you manage your catalog. But we want to walk you through that process and let you know which ones are probably the most important, those kinds of things.
We don't know what that class is going to look like exactly yet because there's so much to put in it. We're trying to figure out if we're going to break it up.
Right.
And we don't want to do a 20-week class.
Right. And when I say publishers, I think we are targeting the self-publisher. So we're talking about...
Well, you probably are if you're a songwriter or a musician and you're watching this or listening to this, or if you know one, if you've done anything, written a book, written a blog, written a song, you are a publisher.
Right.
You just don't know it.
And you are a self-publisher, as they call you.
Here.
Instead of being signed to a publisher, you are your own publisher. And so it's so important in the age that we're in, the digital technological age where music is streaming and being downloaded and so many things are happening with music that you need to have all of your ducks in a row. Everything needs to be done. Wasn't that way back in the day, but...
Well, I was thinking, as I was looking at this and trying to find that graphic that I'm still after, which I might have to, I don't know if you can do it in one graphic. People try to put in one graphic, like, here's a song, here's how it splits up, here's the people that get the licenses, and here's all the revenue streams. And it just looks like, you know what it looks like, Dawn? It looks like our family tree.
Yeah.
I always get our family tree has root rot. Not because there's no like people with one eye or, our IQ's not going down. We just marry people we're already related to. We have like cousins that are cousins on both sides, and it's kind of weird. So that's what this...
Let me specify. No blood relation.
No.
It's a cousin will marry a person, and then one of the other side will go marry that person's other cousin.
Yeah, I'm going to say it real quick. My dad's sister married my mom's uncle.
Yes.
So my aunt is also my mom's aunt. My cousin is my cousin's wife. It's just weird. So that's what the stream, when they start to do the little lines and it goes here and it goes there. And I was like, why is this so complicated? Why is America so complicated? Part of it is because we haven't signed on and done the simple thing like Europe has, where they try to just have one PRO, performing rights organization. They only have one. You don't have an option because we're America. You got choices because you don't want just one option if you get ticked off at one. And we've had some experience with that. So we have more options. That's part of it. But also, this is not, so you got to think of publishing in the music industry. It didn't just happen, like it wasn't just created like the internet was created in the 60s, but it really was, came to life in the 90s when everybody started using it. And the dot-com boom and all that. That's 20 some years, really, 25 years that we've been doing this. The music industry has been going on for hundreds of years, literally hundreds of years. So when you hear that there's a mechanical license, that's something where it's fixed to something that's physical, something that, then there's a performance license. And there's several different types of those. It's because, you first had written music, then you had, radio, then you had TV, then you had all these things, now you have digital. Every time one of these comes along, they have to figure out who gets to be in charge of this license. What is the license? Who gets to be in charge? How much do they have to pay? Where's that revenue stream come? It usually, when we start talking about publishers, most of the revenue streams and most of the control is from the publisher. That's because as these things started getting added, the publishers / record companies were the ones that were powerful. So some of these revenue streams, you will see that the writers and the artists don't get that many revenue streams compared to the publisher. And it ticks me off to no end, because I'm like, hey, but it's because they're doing the work. It's because they're the ones that are supposed to, go out there and get this thing placed and get this thing working to make money. But it's also because the way that it came about, kind of the people that had power,
Well, and even think about it, back in the day, you really couldn't distribute your music without a publisher. When music was beginning, you had to be with a record label or a publishing entity.
You had to have somebody. You couldn't go to all the tiny radio stations that were popping up,
right?
And get them to play your songs,
right?
So you had to have these in-betweens, these people to do that for you, and they would do it for more than one artist,
right?
So it made it feasible for them to make money,
right? So the do-it-yourself musician was not really even a possibility back then, and
right.
It is now.
Well, not to make any money. I mean, there was plenty of do-it-yourself musicians who had no money, that didn't even know.
That's true.
They were in a
club somewhere.
They were playing blues, and they didn't know they were in a business. They didn't think about that, because artists tend not to think about, I'm a business person.
Right.
So this is very businessy.
Right.
But nowadays, because, not the death of record companies, but, there's not as many record companies. There's definitely a few small ones out there, but not like it was in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that you're going to be your own record company, that you're going to be your own publisher, that you're going to, remain your own publisher, I should say, is more likely. So
yes,
let's just start with, go ahead, Dawn.
Let me say that you have options even as your own publisher these days, because you could say you have a catalog of a few songs that you want to, keep for sync, say, just as an example, and you want to put those somewhere, but then you write a whole other collection of songs, maybe with a different co-writer, and you guys decide, hey, let's go get a publishing deal for these, and we'll be in a band. So the beauty of now is that you do have all the options. You can remain, your own publisher for a few things. I mean, there's so many options out there, which is why it's so complicated.
Yeah. 10 years ago, I kept saying music is dead. And what I meant by that was the music industry is dead. My kids would argue with me. My nephew, who was a musician, would argue with me. And I would be like, no, it's dead. And I didn't like it the way that it was. I hated the big record companies. It drove me crazy that they would take advantage, because a lot of them would, because of all the stuff we're going to talk about. It was just easier, because back in the 80s, when Dawn and I came up in the music industry and into the 90s, artists were making money by touring, by selling records, even with the record company giving them huge advances. Writers were making money, bands were going out and playing. There was money to be had. There was performances to be done, and it wasn't oversaturated. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people had, money at the time, and they were spending money on music. I was a teenager in the 80s, and I actually had some money, and I could buy some records, So the music industry didn't die. It just shifted into something that I, had no idea what it was going to be. My kids and everybody, all the younger people, obviously saw more of what it's going to be. The fact that there's a lot of free stuff out there, and artists have to do a lot of free things, it irks me as an old woman, basically, because I'm like, you made that, you shouldn't give it away for free. And then here comes Chance the Rapper, and my kids are like, he didn't sell anything. And I'm like, what? And then before you know it, I'm like, go Chance the Rapper, because he did it his own way. And he saw, I'm not going to make any money on this anyways. I might as well You know, there's
Yeah.
1,000 different ways you can do it. You want to be the first guy to try whatever you're doing. But anyways, you got to think outside the box. So let's just start with back to publishing. I think a lot of you that are listening are already publishers. If you have written a song, if you've written a book, if you've written a blog, and you've put it down on paper, on computer, if you've sung a little melody into your phone, you are not only a songwriter, you are a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
You are a publisher. Chances are you're a publisher. So what you do with that publishing is what comes next. You can keep it, like Dawn said, and self-publish and try to collect all this yourself and get all your ducks in a row, and that is perfectly fine. Nowadays with digital and the internet, you can learn through through podcasts like this, through our classes. You can go search things. You can figure out how to do a lot of that yourself. You can also get help with people that won't take all your publishing. It used to be if you wanted publishing help, you pretty much had to basically give somebody your publishing. And you would keep 50% as a songwriter and you'd give away your publishing. That's what publishing deals were. So back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, publishing deals. A lot of guys who had publishing deals, and they would sell their publishing and they would get, some of them were making 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grand a month. Some of the big ones were making up to that and a little more sometimes. And then the publishing company would own their publishing. So they would give them, say, 5 grand a month, and they would want 12 songs a year out of them. Now, some of those are going to be co-writes, so it's going to be half a song or a third of a song. So it had to equal up to 12 full songs, and the publishers still own those from back in the 90s, the age that I'm talking about. So that was a way that a lot of songwriters could make a living while they're doing other things. Some of those, I don't know how those worked always with, I remember some songwriters, I was always asking, well, do they own everything that you write during the year? Because some songwriters would give more than more than they were required to.
I know what you're going to say.
And I would be like, what if you write a really good song and you don't want them to have it? And they're like, don't write a really good song when you're in a publishing deal, kind of thing. They would just
tell anybody.
Or they would just put it aside and it wouldn't be finished.
Yeah.
That a lot of guys I know.
And I don't really think the publishing deals meant.
I don't think they
didn't mean everything you freaking do, in the next year, we're going to own you.
Because it was definitely a business. There were buildings on Music Row where there was, record companies and different things, but there was just music rooms and there was piano, guitar, and the publishing companies would put 2 guys together, 2 guys that had never met. Mm-hmm. I think you could write with that guy, and they'd put them together. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And so that was happening all over Nashville. I'm sure that was happening in LA too, to some degree, but Nashville was the, publishing songwriter town.
I just have to say something about songwriting and musicians, because I have no clue how that was happening, because you have to be a certain personality to be able to do that, go into a room. And there's not many musicians that I know that could handle that, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it was a very specialized kind of songwriting. Now, I believe if you're a very prolific songwriter, you can make yourself do that. And even Reggie, when we interviewed Reggie Ham, he said, if it got over 4, I just left the room.
Yeah, if there were 4 songwriters, I'm out. I'm not the 4th one.
And I know he wasn't just saying that just because of the complications of that, but can you just imagine having 4 prolific songwriters in a room? I mean, I've been in rooms with 3 where we're just going around.
The ideas are flying.
But we're also going, no.
Yeah, right.
I don't like it that. I like this way. And, you're just, of course, that's with people I know very well. But
I imagine 2 songwriters, probably is the charmed sweet spot.
Yeah.
Because you're, especially, and if you know somebody, I mean,
right.
Reggie tended to write, I'm sure, a lot with people that he knew. That's what some of his best stuff came from, probably.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
He did mention that with Rick Elias. That was
Rick Elias and Bob Carlisle.
Right.
He posted the other day that he wrote. He's posting all of his stuff in little stories, which I'm loving, on Facebook, on the Reggie Ham music blog, or is that what it's called? Anyways, go find Reggie Ham.
Fans, I think.
Yeah, and one of them was how Bob Carlisle and I wrote this in 10 minutes. One of those kind of things. So sometimes you find who it works. And then, so he writes with Bob, they both split it. So at the time, Bob had his publishing company, Reggie had his. Now Reggie was with CSAC. I don't know who Bob was with. and then they would, each have publishers who took that publishing share because they each had publishing deals, I'm sure. Bob did. So so they each have part of the songwriters and they each have the publishing. So most of the licensing that we're going to start talking about goes through the publisher. So the publisher is the one who gets to make the decisions on how these things are used. So let me see. Sorry, I have notes here and I've got to check them. So yeah, so somebody sits down, they write a song, they write lyrics, they write notes, they fix it somehow to something, which means they put it down on paper, on a record, on a tape recorder, on their computer. You can do it in GarageBand. However you do it, that is fixing something. And now you are a songwriter / publisher. If you don't have a record deal or you don't have a publishing deal, you are the publisher. So now what do you do? Okay, so you are going to have several different royalty streams and different licenses. So that most of the licenses, there's like 6 main licenses, I believe, 4 that are really the ones that generate. Through those, there's different, like say there's mechanical license. There's a lot of different ways through a mechanical license that you can get revenue stream. So there's a performance license that goes to the writer or the songwriter and the publisher as far as revenue. But the performance license is going to go through the publisher, right, Dawn?
Yes.
Okay, there's a mechanical license. The mechanical license goes only through the publisher. So the performance is if something is played live. So something is, if you're doing a live concert and playing your own stuff, if you have recorded the song, right? And it goes out there, the writer and the publisher gets those performance royalties. You will notice who does not get those performance royalties.
Like in a cafe, if it's
cafe, on an airplane, in an elevator,
right,
in the grocery store, places like that. Some of these performances are also on radio. That would be a performance. That would be under the performance license thing. Who does not get paid? Pretty much the artist who recorded it. Now that might be you too. You might be the songwriter, the artist, and the publisher. But one thing with performance is it can be recorded by, think of the song Hallelujah. How many people have re-recorded that song? I think it's the most re-recorded song on the planet, to the point that Cohen basically said, people stop doing this for a while, please stop re-recording the song. He actually came out and said that, like, stop it, enough. So every time somebody re-recorded that song, they had to get permission. Basically, it's a license where you have to get permission through a mechanical license to get a performance license. Kind of weird. So you have to get the mechanical license. Those are compulsory. Dawn's shaking her head. That's a compulsory mechanical license. U.S. government says you have to give that license. If it's been released to the public, you have to.
In other words, if you wrote the song, you have to allow somebody else to record it. Or sing it somewhere.
Or sing it in a club.
Even in churches, they've got.
Churches has CLLI. I saw somebody on Facebook the other day. I said something about publishing and they said I had to go tell somebody.
CLI, yeah.
CLI. I had to go tell somebody they're not putting the CLI logo on the sheets when you see the thing with the words up on the screen, so you know how to sing the right words to the worship song. They have to pay CCLI to the publisher and songwriter on that. Right. So there's a lot of tiny little licenses within these licenses. So with the performance license, if you re-record it, if you do a cover, you can make money on the sale of that, but you have to in advance have paid for the license, the mechanical license.
Money on your recording.
On your recording. If you sell a CD for $5 and you got 5 songs on it, you can, after you take out your whatever it costs you to make the CD, and whatever your manager's getting, and whatever
and you've already prepaid for the performance.
The mechanical license.
Mechanical license, yes.
Compulsory mechanical license. Yes. It is 9.1 cents to put it on a CD. It's 1 penny for a stream. I'm not sure how much it is is it for a digital download, Dawn? Is it 9.1 cents as well?
I believe digital downloads are in that. Yes.
Because basically that's saying somebody's going to buy that song and kind of own that song. They don't
Right.
own the composition, and neither do you. Even though you are selling a CD with a song on it that you recorded, you don't own, just like the person that buys the CD does not own your, just by having the CD in their hand, they do not own your recording of it. You, by recording it, do not own the composition, meaning
Yeah.
you can't just do whatever you want with that. When you want to do something with it, you have to go pay for it. If you want to put it on YouTube, the person who owns the underlying composition, the songwriter and the publisher, get to say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Basically, the publisher on that one gets to say, hey, I need to get paid. And they can say yes or no. That one's not compulsory. That one, the only compulsory ones we have are the mechanical. And within that, there is now a new compulsory license for digital streaming, non-interactive, right?
It is.
Spotify, basically.
Because that means that you can't
Say no.
pick it and download it. Is that what you mean?
Right.
Yes.
So there's where
Yes.
you can say, I want to buy this song, and you can buy it. Then there's, I want to listen to this song, and you want to physically choose to listen to that song at that moment. And that's an interactive stream where you say,
Yes.
I want to listen to that. Non-interactive is like a digital radio station. Those
Right.
two things are very different according to copyright law, and how they're being paid, and how the licenses work. Those things are completely different. It's driving me crazy. Everybody said this is the thing. It just got better, and it's driving me nuts because it's a compulsory license for non-interactive digital streams of radio. So Spotify, Apple Music, all those have now a compulsory, meaning you have to give it mechanical license. So they can spin those, we're thinking of this. I'm going to hold this up. Thinking of this record, right? There's a little record here. Look at Dawn, how cute she was. There's a record in here. So when you think mechanical, you're thinking something physical, even when it's,
she just held up a Crumbacher album that we
you're not watching on YouTube.
1986. If you're just listening, called "Escape from the Fallen Planet."
Yeah, Dawn's band back in the day. So when that thing gets used, there's all these licensing strings. There's a compulsory now license, because Spotify and all those, they were playing hundreds, thousands, millions of songs, and they were collecting money, because when Spotify plays songs, they have to take, I think it's like 1.7% of their profit, their ad revenue, and pay it to this PRO, that PRO, these different places, in order to pay the songwriters. They were not doing all their paperwork. They were not doing what would be like a cue sheet, but it's basically, what song did you play, how much, what time did you play it, all of that kind of thing. So all that money was going into a black box, and we were trying to get all that money out of the black box. So if you have a song and you release it for public consumption, you release it for people to buy, you release it for people to listen to, you are now, by US copyright law, I don't know how this works for foreign copyright, but for US copyright law, you have to allow that to be on Spotify, simply because it's been released. My kids have a question, Dawn. I don't know if you know about Wu-Tang Clan's album that they did.
No.
They did an album where they recorded an entire album, and they made one pressing, and they sold it on auction to one guy.
Okay.
There's one guy that bought it, and he paid a lot of money for it.
Okay.
I don't know that it's ever been released to the public to hear. That was the whole thing. Now, they sold it. So they made it, they pressed it, they sold it. I don't know how that works with this new compulsory mechanical license, because nobody's heard it. Anyways, we need somebody that's got higher pay grade than me and Dawn to let me know. But that was a question my kids came up with, was like, what about Wu-Tang Clan?
What do you mean? What?
I don't know if it's only if you've released it for public consumption, like it's been on the radio, because that doesn't make any sense to me, because a compulsory mechanical license is you've made it available to the public for sale, I think, right?
Which they did. But only one person actually ended up being able to hear it.
Yes.
Yeah, we could get into the weeds of that.
I don't know. That's
Was
just
he allowed to do whatever he wanted to with that? No,
no.
probably
He
not.
could not make more copies and stuff. I
I
believe there was a
see.
very long contract about that.
Got it.
Because
Great.
it's not his. Again, that's a good question. He owns the record with the songs on it. He does not own the recording. He does not own the performances. He does not own the composition. It's not his to do with what he wants. Just because you have a record, if you buy a record and you want to make yourself a CD, the government has said, they've gone over this for decades, and the record companies finally gave in a little bit and said, fine, you can put it on your computer. You can make yourself one copy. I think you can make a few more copies. They gave in a little bit after years.
Right.
But if you buy a CD, there's CDs that I've bought Toto for probably 8 times in my life. Just because I bought it on cassette remember in Hong Kong, Dong, we bought it on cassette, and we bought that little Sony Walkman.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're walking through Hong Kong. Dawn almost got hit by a car because she was so excited to listen to all this music on a Walkman. It was a very exciting time. You people don't know. You have no idea, you young kids, how exciting that was. So we did not have any rights to that music. We couldn't say, well, my tape got melted in the car. That used to happen all the time. And we're in California right now. It is the most awesome day right now because it's like 80 degrees. And 2 days ago, it was 117. It was 121 in Woodland Hills. Now, it's probably cooler because there's so much smoke blocking out the sun, unfortunately, from all the fires. So just prayers for
We are living in hell in the last few days.
It is like, yeah, it's kind of a nightmare, but it's cooler.
It's overcast. It's muggy. I feel like I'm in Malaysia where I used to live.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird because even
48 hours.
2 days ago.
It's like almost 40 degrees difference. Yeah.
And now we have fires and our electric is going, we're having to, deal with that. Beth's electricity went out 2 days in a row. I had to call my parents last night. I'm staying at my daughter's house and I told them that the power might go out. I just wanted to warn them because I got a text about it.
Got a generator, thank goodness.
Gosh, we are.
Yeah, it's because this is September in California. This is, apocalyptic bingo.
Woo!
Fires. We're used to it.
We shouldn't even laugh about it because I feel for the people.
No, I feel every time I go out and I see a beautiful sunset on times like this, I'm like, man, that's somebody's house.
And we have personally been involved in this before. We've had to evacuate from our own houses for fire reasons. So it's not funny, but it is something we deal with in California.
We deal with every year. Every year. This is, we call it fire season because, there's a fire season. We don't have any other seasons. Well, we do have the flood season where then all the houses will fall off the hill.
That's true. Yeah.
That too.
Anyway,
so back to, I don't remember where I was. So, melting tapes. So if your tape melts in the car, you don't get to go to the store or go to the artist and go, give me another one. You bought the thing. You bought the physical thing that
you should have taken care of that. That's right.
There was a mechanical license and a performance license that allowed that to be made. Mm-hmm. And you paid those fees when you bought it, and you got the CD that broke or the tape that melted. Now you got to go buy it again.
Or the record that warped.
Yeah, if you left it in the sun, yeah, that would do that.
Yeah.
So there's all of these different licenses. So there's performance, been over that a little bit. Mechanical, that goes to the publisher, the revenues, and the choices of how these things can be made. There's some that are compulsory and some that are not. There's print. Now, print, I believe, is encompassing the internet as well. Lyric sites. This is a new exciting thing because lyric sites have 5 million hits a day on Google for lyrics. Those weren't getting paid for a long time. All those sites were making money by advertising. If you ever went to search for lyrics, there was just advertising everywhere. You could barely see the lyric. They were making money on those. So now they're actually paying, I think it's an average of a penny every time somebody clicks on one. So that's pretty cool.
It's actually paying right now better than Spotify.
Right, which is
so really, if you don't know about this, find out.
Yeah, go find out if you don't know about how to collect your.
I know how to tell you how to do it, but that'll be another time.
Well done. So print started out that was one of the original, one of the very first original copyright revenue streams with licensing.
With sheet,
Prince.
that was sheet music, correct?
Because yeah, before radio,
Right.
people would hear about a song and they learn to play it at home. That's
Right.
how people knew about songs. Okay, now it's come back around to where it's on the internet. Okay, then there's the sync license. Sync license is when you marry a audio to a visual. So it can be a lot of different things. There's a huge, you know, it's one license and one revenue stream, but it branches off into just a dozen or more places. Games, commercials, TV, film, ringtones.
Apps, ringtones.
Yeah. Apps. There's tons of these.
Even not, is that a sync? Maybe not. Never mind.
I don't know because you didn't say it out loud.
I was going into companies like to use things, but if they're not broadcasting it.
Oh, during like company events.
Right.
That would be a sync if
What is a sync? Yeah.
Okay, so if a company says we want to use your music during our big corporate event inside the venue, we're not streaming it on the internet, just when people walk in or when our CEO comes on stage, we want to use your music song. They have to go get a license for that.
And that is called a sync license, correct? Because they are still marrying it.
No. I'm talking about if just it plays in the auditorium.
Oh.
Maybe rent out a big auditorium or whatever, and they're just using it as background music. The CEO comes out and they want Rocky theme because he's, you know, they have to get permission for that because that is a special use. That is a use for a corporate event to play to 1,000 people or 10,000 people, whatever, are in the auditorium. You have to go get a license for that. If they put it to one of their corporate videos, that is a different license. That would be a sync license. Right. And a lot of corporations use that to make these, you know, pump up their salespeople videos and things. They could also ask the band to come perform there. A lot of corporate, big, you know, the billionaire ones will have bands come and perform. That's a different license. That's a performance license. So depending on how they use it, they might use it 3-4 times. So all of these different licenses have different streams, and they're all go to different people. Most of them go to the producer, or I'm sorry, the publisher, except for, which is the only one, the non-interactive stream that doesn't go to the publisher, right? That goes to the artist. No, that goes to the publisher too, doesn't it?
Non-interactive streams, I believe so.
Yeah, but it's a compulsory, so the publisher doesn't get to decide. But sampling is another one. So if somebody wants to sample your song, the publisher is the one that gets to decide if that happens or not, or you have to go through the publisher if it's compulsory, or their agent to pay them for that. So those are the basic streams: performance, mechanical, print, sync, sampling's in there, interactive stream is in there. There's a lot of other small licenses within all of this. So that's revenue streams. There's, so radio streams, broadcasts, live concerts, all of those go into a big, you know, pile, 100%, and then it gets split back out. Usually it's going to go half songwriter, half publisher for a lot of these. Not all of them. And like I said, I can't find, I need to make myself a chart.
There's many things going through my head, but I don't know if I should say them out loud. You're talking about the United States right now.
I'm always talking about the United States. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
I just have to say, if anybody's out there listening, we do have listeners in other countries that
the only reason I have to stick with the United States is because it is different than everybody else, slightly or a lot, and every country is going to be slightly different.
It is. And I will say, for United States musicians, we've said this before, that there are places that you can go sign up, even as an artist or a producer or someone who sang on an album, those kinds of things. There are places that you actually can get paid. There are little loopholes that will help you. Once again, I know about these, but I'm not going to go into it right now. You must have an ISRC code. There's all these different things. There are certain countries who have an organization in place that are going to pay you. Many of our artists and musicians don't really realize this. One of the reasons is because why would you know that unless somebody is broadcasting that? There's all these things that are happening around the world where companies will say, this is what we're going to do, and they're going to take care of it this way. And then somebody finds out about it and they're like, guess what? You can get paid over there. But you have to really know the avenue to get there. And outside of the US, neighboring rights, there are ways that artists and producers, engineers, session players, that they do get paid. But it does not apply to the United States as a neighboring right, because we opted.
Now, if you are with a PRO and you have put your song, you've registered it with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, GMR.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to get that right.
There's 90 artists there now.
Wow.
By the way, yeah.
Good for them. I'm kind of rooting for them to, but then all the rest of us are going to be like, help us.
Right.
They still have to abide by blanket licensing though. So
right.
That's one thing. So anyways, so if you are, put your music with PROs. So if you go with BMI, the new thing with BMI that's pretty cool is if you register as a songwriter and don't register as a publisher and don't put down any publishing as with your song, so they're going to ask you who's the publisher. If you just don't put anything, they're going to assume it's you and give you that publishing. It'll come in a different check. It'll be under your name, whatever you registered as. ASCAP, still you'll need to sign up as a publisher. But ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, they will try to get some of those neighboring rights for you. There are ways through these PROs that you can go sign up in all these different countries with their PROs. Each country has their own PRO. And CMO, Dawn, what is that? I heard that from the other day.
Oh
man, I wrote it down and now I
don't remember what it stands for.
I can't remember what it stands for. It's like a PRO, but it's for foreign neighboring rights and things.
Yes, it is.
So here's the deal though.
Collection management. Hold on. Never mind.
You just think about it while I keep talking. So if your song gets played in, I think the United Nations says there's like 195 countries now. My kids tell me there's more, but that's what the United Nations recognizes. So if your song's played in, if it gets picked up in a little European country, it probably is going to be picked up in 5 or 6 little European countries, even if it doesn't get big, if that guy that dude that got huge in that small African country. Do you remember that, Dawn?
Isn't there a documentary about it or something?
There is, and I wish I'd remembered it before this so I could look up his name. There was a dude who did one album back in the 60s or 70s. Blues album, I think. Nothing really happens. Record company drops him. He goes about his life. He's living his life. He's raising his family. He's got grandkids. And I don't even remember how it happened. I think he might have met somebody from this country, and I don't know if it was Cameroon or I don't know why that pops in my head. He was huge in one country in Africa, like huge, like posters and people painting pictures of him. And I think that's how somebody recognized him. They came to this country and they saw him and they were like, and he's like, how do you know who I am? Hadn't recorded other stuff, just moved on. And I don't know what he did for a living. He was huge in that country, never got a cent. Of course, somebody had started making it illegally and whatever. Nowadays, if it's on the radio there, if it's on Spotify there, he'll have that money to collect, but he's got to go collect it. He's got to be registered somewhere, and you have to follow this trail to get that penny, that 10 cents, whatever it is, back to you. There has to be a trail for that to get back to you. So you have to sign up with a PRO as a writer and as a publisher, because a lot of these licenses go through the publisher. So don't think if you just go sign up at ASCAP as a writer and not a publisher that you're done. You're not. If you don't sign up as a publisher, and even with BMI, I would sign up as a publisher and not assume they're going to do the work for you. Never assume somebody's just going to do the work for you, because they estimate 50% of royalties never make it to the people they're supposed to get to, because they can't figure out who to get it to. Now, some of them aren't trying that hard. I think Spotify, where you're listening to this right now, I think they try that hard to find where to put all this money, because it takes a lot of work to figure out where to get all those little pennies to. That's why we now have this compulsory license for Spotify, Apple Music, all those places. And we're doing the MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, is trying to get everybody to register with them so that when your stuff is played, it'll be easy to find. It's going to be open to the public. You can see who did what, who the publisher is, who the writer is, all of that. It'll be supposedly better, we hope. But in the meantime, you need to be registered with PRO, and you need to find out, call your PRO, get a representative. You need a representative at your PRO. They want to help you. They want to collect all that money because that's how they're nonprofit. I don't know how true that is with these guys, but they're not a for-profit except CSAC and GMR. But they want to help you. That's their job. And these people that work as representatives at CSAC and, all right, I don't know about CSAC that much, but I was going to say BMI and ASCAP, which are not-for-profit. They want to help you. They're there because they love music.
CSAC does a lot.
Yeah, but they're for profit. So
they are for profit, but that doesn't mean that they aren't there for you.
They're obviously there for you.
They are.
It goes without saying because they're for profit. But even the nonprofit ones, they do want to help you.
Yes.
As much as, and they have a ton of work, and I always feel for these guys because we give them a bad rap sometimes. They get a bad rap sometimes. They've got a crazy hell of a job. They've got to figure out all of these different revenue streams and how to get the money out. But they have representatives that will work with you, and you can go ask for one. You can go find one and work with them, and they'll be the one that you work with all the time. You need to figure out how you can sign up with as many of these neighboring rights PROs as possible. Because if you don't, you're not going to get the money. If you're not, if your song doesn't get registered with that other PRO in a foreign country, and there are 195 of them, you're not going to get the money. Now, you may say to yourself, that's ridiculous. My music's not being played over there. You don't know. This dude from, I want to say it was like from Pennsylvania or something. I will find it and I will put it on the YouTube. I'll put the link in if you're interested in the video documentary of who this dude was, who made this record that got huge in some country in Africa. I'll find it.
Yeah.
So he's the poster child for me of don't let your publishing just go by the wayside. Because you don't know what's happening in all these countries, and you just, you never know. So even if it's a few pennies here, a few pennies there, that stuff can add up and it can make the difference for you. There's a lot of revenue streams and it can really make the difference. Okay, Dawn, you have something to say? You look like you had something to say.
I do. No.
Okay. Okay, one thing I want to say, I know I'm preaching, hopefully not to the choir. You got to think of your composition as a tangible thing. You got to think of it as something that is not ethereal, but something that's almost physical. Land, or, a car you own, it's the vehicle you drive, something. You've got to think of it in those terms. You've got to do your registering. You've got to keep the engine clean. You've got to do the maintenance on it. You've got to take care of it. Other people might want to come and borrow it. You need to get your money when they do. If somebody wants to build a house on the land you own, which is your composition, you need to get your money for that. You need to collect the money. When they play that song, you can collect the money. When they sell that song, you can collect the money. If it gets picked up on a TV show, you can collect the money because you're the publisher and you're going to go and you're going to work on those licenses. So they're going to, most of the time, if it's a sync license or something, or a mechanical license, they're going to come to you. They're going to do the work. It's not like you're running out there, and you can go out there and try and, that's what publishers, that's one of the reasons they got started. Publishers were out there trying to get stuff on the radio. They were trying to get songs put on records, by big artists. That's what a publisher would do. So outside of a record company, these publishing deals, the reason they had them is they were going to make money after the song got placed and used. Now that's you. You can go get a publisher to help you collect the money. You can go get a publisher who's going to take a lot of your publishing, sometimes all of it, to get the music, to get the song placed with an artist. Those are all aspects that you can do, or you can keep the publishing yourself. There's different avenues of how you deal with your publishing. It's up to you. And it's how much work you want to put in and how much value you see in your songs. So if you have a huge library, you're a prolific songwriter, you've got to determine which of those avenues you want to go with. If you're a prolific songwriter, my suggestion would be to try to get one of these companies who will collect the revenues for you, do the licensing for you, and only take a small percent and not take your publishing. You don't want to give it.
Songtrust is one of those. There are many others that are popping up. I have worked with Songtrust. I like them. One reason I will say, they have graphs, and they will show where they'll show you as you go where everything, all the money is coming in, even a penny.
So they'll show you your song. They'll show you like on a graph what your song is doing out there.
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice.
I need to show you that, Beth, at some point. I'll.
So, and they won't take all your publishing.
No, they're taking a percentage. There's a sign up fee. You can usually get a
It's like $100, right?
on that. It's $100, but I've seen 30% off out there, 20% off.
And it's a one-time fee?
One-time fee, and then it's 15%. And they have, just like the PROs, they have people that will help you and walk you through this stuff, or you have a concern. Now, they are not, I work with ours. I'm a publishing administrator, and him and I work together because he doesn't have all the time to go after everything. Because I am administrating for my own, I'll let him know if there's an issue. If I see something that's not correct in BMI, or I know something's happening, then him and I will work together and go after that.
How does it work, Dawn, when you guys get a placement and you've got all the co-writers, and I know you're dealing a lot with all of that, but when you get a placement, do you go to him and tell him, hey, look out for this? Do you give him a piece of paper? Yeah.
Yes. If we have a new license or a big song somewhere that is airing, I definitely let them know. You can put, the other thing that's really cool about them, you put all your information in about the song. You give them all the links that you know, YouTube, any places that this is playing. If you let them know that, it actually helps. You're also giving them an ISRC or ISWC to help find this. So they're kind of the person that where all your stuff is going in, and you can even decide what you want there or what you don't want there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's not everything. So it's kind of like a PRO. Well, no.
And
exactly.
you can get out of it. You have an opt-out time within
Once you're with the PRO, you would put everything with one PRO. As a songwriter, you can only be with one PRO.
Right.
But if you go to Songtrust, or I can't remember the other one we were talking about last week.
Yeah.
If you go and sign up with Songtrust, you can choose what you want them to collect for you.
Were we talking about CD Baby?
No, we haven't really talked about CD.
They will do this to an extent. There's some of the places, DistroKid may be the other one, that they are helping you get your music somewhere, but they're also doing this kind of tracking for you. So there's a lot of them that are changing right now.
Right. CD Baby used to just be if you wanted to put out, originally just CDs. Right. Then they started helping you with getting it on iTunes, and it started expanding, collecting some revenue for streaming. Those kind of things. They are morphing and expanding to help you collect all these different revenue streams as they are being born, basically.
Right. And that's a good way to put it, Beth, because as I was just saying, Songtrust isn't that old. They haven't been around that long. Some of these others are brand new. So they're working as we go. As we all know, there's new laws coming in. And so it's kind of a time in the industry where we're all kind of working together to figure everything out. And if you have been in some live Zooms and things like that, you're going to know that that's happening, because even some of these companies, people will come on and they'll be like me and Beth, and they'll go, wait, is that in there or is it not? And the reason we're doing that is because some of these laws have been changing and the way that they're figuring this out. So it's kind of a really cool time to be an independent musician. And if you have the time to pay attention. Today we were recording and I needed to be watching something that's out there, and I was like,
there's another Zoom going on right now.
A few friends, can one of you watch this? Because so there's a lot of things out there to be paying attention to. But man, it's Beth and I call it the wild, wild west sometimes, but it does really feel like that. But at the same time, there's so many options for you. So,
Right. There's a ton of places you can go now, a ton of companies. I wouldn't suggest going with one that just popped up. I would try to find one that's been around for a couple years, except
the thing
you
that
might
we
get
liked about Song Trust at when we signed up with them is that it was only a year commitment.
Right. That's good. But what I'm saying is like, you know, I think right now we're hitting this hinge pin that everything's shifting, and there's, you know, Song Trust came along and there wasn't a ton of companies doing it. CD Baby had already established, they were starting to do it. There was a few starting to do it.
Right.
Now it seems like there's brand new companies, you know, starting to do it. I'd really investigate them to see how well they're doing it. Not that they're not going to do a good job. And the new guy on the block sometimes is going to think about it much better than the other guy. That's one of the things with Song Trust is because it's not, you know, the PROs are chasing something because they're having to add in, how do we go get this? And how do we get that stream? And wait, is that ours? Are we supposed to collect on that? Because they haven't been. They're, you know, PROs are starting to collect on streaming and they weren't. And streaming's been going on for a decade or more. So where did all that money go? Well, they're chasing it because they're huge. They've got hundreds of thousands of songs, millions of songs, and they're chasing, you know, getting all these new things that I said are giving birth to. And these new companies start out with a mechanism that's set up specifically to go get these royalties and things.
Right.
So I'm not saying don't go with a new company.
Right. And as we've said,
homework.
It doesn't matter who you're going with. It's the age of the musician where you have to understand and know what's happening to your music. You cannot put that with someone and not have
understanding of it.
A good understanding and idea, and even work that for yourself. If you figure out, wait a minute, if you get a statement and you say, I know that that show plays in this country and you're not seeing anything, start asking questions.
Yeah.
Even call that PRO in that other company or a country or email them and ask them. I know this is, you know, who has the time to do all of this? This is another problem, you know. Even was talking to my son the other day who writes for television. He's a professional musician and he's like, how would I ever have time to go do all that? And I'm like, you're right. So if you hire someone, and he mentioned hiring Beth, paying her a certain amount, you know, percentage, you go do a few of these things. So, you know, and we do.
Yeah, you don't have to go with one of these companies. You can hire an admin if you want somebody who's more personal. Right. If you want somebody, they're going to collect a percentage, just like, you know, Song Trust would. Yes. They're going to collect a percentage for you. It kind of depends on what you do with your music, where your music is. If you're going in the studio and you're in a band or you're a solo artist and you're putting out your own CD, you're not getting syncs and you're not getting on the radio. You're not, you know, getting in coffee shops.
You're making money on your merch, these kinds of things.
Then you're maybe not at that step where you need to go hire an admin.
Right.
If you start getting more plays, if you start getting, you know, now that guy that I talked about, I wish I knew his name. He was with a record company. The record was sold somewhere else. So he knew it was out there. And, you know, that can happen if it's on iTunes or something like that. But from iTunes, you're going to get your statements. Sometimes it takes a long time. Mm-hmm. We were waiting for what, Dawn? 2 years? Mm-hmm. We were going through somebody and, you know, it was delayed. That happens, especially with neighboring rights. It's going to be sometimes 2 years before you get paid. Yeah. But if you are pretty sure that you're not going around the world, you don't necessarily need to hire an admin. You might not be ready to go to Song Trust. But, you know, if you're getting co-writes with people, if you're getting more active and you have a lot of songs, you need to start thinking in those terms. You need to start thinking differently depending on what you're doing and how many songs you have and where those songs are. If you have co-writes and somebody else has publishing on those co-writes, you don't know what they're doing. So, you know, if you had a co-write, if you've been doing this for a few years and you're not big, but you've had a bunch of co-writes, you don't know necessarily where they're getting those things placed if everybody has publishing rights to go get those licenses. Because whoever the publisher is, has the right to get the mechanicals. Dawn, you smiled a little bit. Are we going to talk about split sheets now?
You can in a minute, but I'm going to talk about co-writers on a song that I knew about. Uh, there was some co-writers where they licensed something from somebody, and he wasn't really even a songwriter. It was like in another country, not signed up for a PRO. I know that that song went huge, and it was all I could do to not contact that person, but it wasn't my place. I just knew about the song, and
So the person who made the deal wasn't allowed to make the deal?
no, they made it. They contacted the person, they did a contract, but he wasn't, I know for a fact he's not signed up for a PRO.
Oh, and there were other co-writers on there.
Yeah.
So
And
that's one that's probably in a black box somewhere
yeah.
that nobody knew about. Now,
But
how would you go find that?
who?
The other co-writers.
Yeah.
Let's walk through this. So the other co-writers, make sure they're with a PRO, right?
Yeah.
They could go to Song Trust, and they don't know about this necessarily, about this use, right?
Yeah.
So it's in another country?
The use?
Yeah.
No, it's being played all over the world.
Okay.
The person who is a co-writer on the song is in another country.
But one of the people isn't signed up for a PRO.
Yeah.
So he is never going to collect a penny on that, simply because he did not go sign up for a PRO.
But
Okay.
he's in a country that I know he probably doesn't even know.
He doesn't even know about the PROs in his own
Yes.
country.
This is hard stuff. I mean,
You want to email him, right?
huh?
Because you want to email him and say,
You may not even have an email. I gotta say, this is nuts. It's just, I'm sorry that I'm being cryptic, but I can't really say much more about it. But
day job.
you know, these are kinds of situations that I've seen where I just go, man, that I wish for the entire world we did have a place. That's why I was excited about the Mechanical Licensing Collective, because at least in the United States, we're trying to get everything.
There's been talk of a worldwide one.
Right.
So if, I think it's probably going to end up having to be these small countries get together, like either by region or continent.
Right.
To amalgamate their information, put it all together, and then we're going to have to, it's
Sure.
hopefully in 20 years, you just go sign up with, 3 different places, and then you just sit back and cash your checks, and they do all the work for you. That is starting to happen, which is kind of our point here.
Yes.
You are a publisher if you are a songwriter. What you do with that is your choice. You can keep it and work it yourself. If you do that, make sure you do it. Make sure you start to understand not only what type of licenses you have, but what the streaming revenues, and by streaming, I don't mean streaming, I mean like royalty streams. I don't mean streaming like on the radio. What royalty streams go with each of those licenses? Because there are multiple licenses, multiple royalty streams, if you're going to be on your own. You should know that anyways, even if you're going to go get help. You can go to a company like Song Trust, and you can sign up, and they will help you collect all of those and deal with, if somebody wants a sync, they have to ask you as a publisher. They can't just make a deal with somebody. They're going to have to ask. You can give that permission to somebody on your behalf with Song Trust, with HFA, Harry Fox Agency will do some syncs if you're with them. But there's some that need to be active, and some that you just sit back and you can let other people do the things for you. The other option is to get a publishing deal. I don't know that nowadays, unless you are a very prolific songwriter, getting songs on hit records that are on in the top 100, if you want to do a publishing deal, because they're going to take your publishing from you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're going to get enough money to live for a year, though. You're going to get some. So if that's who you are, also make sure they're doing their job. If you're in a publishing deal, you don't just sit back and assume that they're registering everything correctly. Every time you do a co-write, you need a split sheet. Here we come back to the split sheet. Yes. We always end at split sheets. The split sheet you need every time you do a co-write, every time you do a session. If you don't have one, find one online and print it out. You can even just do it on a piece of paper if you forgot to bring it with you. You want to have the name of the song, the title of the song, the date, everybody who was writing that with you. You want to have their information on how to contact them. You want to have their PRO information, their
And their IPI number.
IPI number. Thank you,
Yes.
Dawn. You want to have the split sheet is exactly what it sounds. Split. Who is getting what percentage? If it's 4 people in a room and everybody agrees that everybody co-wrote equally, 25, 25, 25, fine, fine, fine. Everybody's going to get the same amount of publishing from that. If you walked in the room with a song 50% done and there's 2 other writers in there, you don't necessarily need to split that 3 ways. You can keep that 50% or even a little bit more if you were in there. If you want to, you know, the other 50%, you guys worked on it together. So you just have to determine that. It's hard to determine that before you write the song, but you can kind of come up with an understanding, especially if you come into a session, a writing session with a song already or an idea. If you've got the chorus but not the verse, you want to let them know in advance what you're expecting at the end of this. Hey, this was my song. I'm going to want 2 shares, not 1, or whatever it is. Just, and then you can go from there to see how you know, who ended up writing more or whatever. Right. If somebody bailed on you, you don't want to sign the split sheet at the very beginning, because if somebody gets a phone call and bails and they got 25% of a song and then it's a hit song, that sucks for you guys that were in the room for 8 hours. So
producers and engineers that are in the room, please have a letter of direction that you can talk to the songwriters or artist about, and have them sign that for you. Because you can go to Sound Exchange, and if that song is released, you can give them a letter of direction and you can get a percentage of the revenue from the master recording.
You can go back, if you are an engineer or a songwriter, you can go back to, I want to say 95, because I started thinking of my husband's records in my head when I saw this.
Yeah.
Back to 95, you need to have a letter of direction for sure. Pre-1995, you can try to get a letter of direction, but if you don't get one, then, and the artist doesn't say something, I think, like they don't want to do it, I think it's an affirmative. They have to say, like, no, we don't want you to. If they don't, then I think you can collect, which I've thought about on my husband's work. He worked on a bunch of Motown stuff. He did the Tony album, the song If I Had No Loot. He was in the room when they wrote it. Or at least when they were putting the beats down. I don't know if they wrote it in the room, but, you know, that was 93, 94. He could go collect on some of that. It was a double platinum album. You know, right. I haven't pursued it. I don't know how they work it. Part of me wants to pursue it just to see how the process works.
You should. Yes, yeah. If you have the time.
If you have the time, because I have no loot. So there you go.
Yeah.
If I had no loot, I'm coming after yours. That would be what the last verse of that song. Anyways, so basically what we're saying is you are a publisher if you create something. Even if it's a book, you're also a publisher. That's a whole different genre. If your kid makes a painting, you know, that's theirs. They own it. Your creative works are important. They're valuable. Make sure that you kind of understand how this all works. And as a publisher, songwriter, you need to really do a little bit of homework. We hope we've helped and not confused you more. We will do way more podcasts on publishing, and we will break it down into individual licenses. Right, today was just an overview of this. We're going to get some guests on who've been working in publishing for decades. And they focus on publishing every day.
And they're going to have a lot more answers than we
have the minutia
right now. But I also want to say, go to amatterofmusic.com. There's a place where you can contact us. Go to our contact page. If you are interested in publishing or music sync or whatever you're interested in, please send us an email. We'll put that aside. And if we're going to do a class on this, we'll let you know. We want to do some classes on publishing. We haven't put those together yet, but they're going to be, number one, affordable, small, where we can talk through how to do this. We'll have screenshots. We'll walk you through some things. We may do a class that's maybe 4 weeks long, but say you only need 2 weeks of the class, you can buy those 2 weeks, you know, to go through certain things that we're going to do. So Beth and I haven't put this together yet, but it's in our brains.
But
And
if you can contact us, if you're interested in a specific subject, a specific aspect of copyright, publishing, artist development,
yes,
management, marketing, those kind of things, let us know what you're interested in so we can hit those topics and we can work our classes around those, because we really want, Dawn and I are advocates for artists. We have been fighting for years, decades, to get artists to be able to make a living. That's what it says on our website, to be able to make a living with their own art the way they want to. So we want you guys to succeed. That's our goal. If you guys succeed and can do your life the way you want to do, making art, then
and I do want to tell you something. We're not just talking, we do know people who are succeeding and making money. Okay. Sometimes we make it seem like this can be, a grim place, but I told a story about one artist that I really believed in his music. And so we just worked on that till we got it to the point where it was syncable in the music library where I was working. And I helped him get to that point because he was so adamant about doing it, and he just went for it. And on my way home from work, he would say, "Can you talk to me? I have a question." And he was very persistent, but he was also very good.
Desperate.
He was desperate, and he was good at his craft. So I listened to him and helped him, and he is doing amazingly well right now. And we know a lot of others who are, we're not going to say that you're going to get rich, because we've seen those places that claim you can make all this money. We know places that you can make money. I'm not going to lie to you and say you can have a house in Malibu and do all this. You're going
to make 6 figures if you follow our class. That's not us.
There's not a ton of musicians who can do that. But what I want to say to you is there are ways to make money in music. And so we want to help you do that, because I do know a lot of them. I have helped a lot of them over the years. My son is one of them who has been able to continue doing music and sometimes do other things on the side. But you know what? He's making enough of a living to save money and make enough money to live. So
he lives very small, and that's his choice.
Yes, he does.
And people ask me, I had a friend from high school that moved out here recently and has 3 daughters that want to be in the music industry. And he moved to California. And I'm like, what'd you do? What'd you do? Can you help me? He found out I was in the industry. I'm like, oh, Lord, here we go. Because I'm the one, when people go, okay, my kid wants to be in music, what should I tell them? I say, tell them to do anything else. There's a reason I say that. It's not because I don't think you can earn a living as a musician. It's very hard nowadays, but you can. You have to, be a jack of all trades, kind of. You might not earn all of your living as a musician. You might need to do websites and do other things. But I tell people that for one main reason. If I can scare you off, then you shouldn't be in this business. If I tell you don't be in this business, and you go, what? I have to. If you have to, if it's your passion, and I don't mean I want to be famous and rich and be on the Grammys. That's not what I mean. Because you can do that. You can do that in 1,000 different ways. It might not be the Grammys. It might be the People's Choice Awards. It might be whatever. You can do that in 1,000 different ways. But if you have to do music, if you have to create, if it's what wakes you up in the morning and gets you excited and nothing else does, then you've got to go forward with it. You don't have to go forward as 100% professional. It might morph into that. There's 1,000 different ways to do it. You can do it on the side. You can do it part-time. You can try to do it full-time. A lot of people do it full-time and make enough of a living. You're probably not going to get rich. I just want everybody to know that. But it is possible to still make some money out there on music. Yeah. It's not easy.
And I'm an example of, I've done a lot of different things over the decades, but I've stayed in music. I started out as a performer. I did that for 2 decades, and I really enjoyed what I was doing. But I have to say this, I tell my kids all the time, I love my job. I love what I do because I'm still involved in music and I'm still helping musicians. In my day job, it's only 20 hours a week as a publishing administrator, but I talk to musicians all the time. Every week I'm working with one of them to chase something or find something and help them find a royalty or help them, make sure that everything's in order. So I still enjoy what I do. I still love my job, and I'm able to do it remotely. before everything else happened, I was working remotely. So, and I'm in charge of my schedule, and it's, so I'm an example of someone who has stayed in the music industry. Maybe not, I'm not outperforming. I'm not on stages anymore. But
And
I'm
you're going to have to be open to that. That's what I'm
yes,
trying to say. You're
right.
going to have to be open to not just sitting in a room writing music and recording it. If that's what you think you're going to do to earn a living, very few people are doing that.
Right.
You're going to have to do other things.
Yeah.
And some of those can be in the music industry, but you're going to be aware that you're going to have to work a lot of different,
Yeah.
it's the classic, you're going to work 80 to 120 hours a week. So you don't have to work for Home Depot,
Yeah.
If you're cool with that, go forward.
So yeah, I think that's a good way to end. Please check out amatterofmusic.com. As we mentioned, email us there if you are interested in future classes and just want to know when that's coming up.
And please click like and subscribe. It really helps us out.
Please
It really
do
does. I know
subscribe.
everybody says that when they do videos, and I never listen to them. I'm like, what? Why? Now I'm like, please like and subscribe my podcast.
No, we have to ask you to do that. So thank you for joining us today. We hope your head isn't spinning too much, that we've given you some information that you can use. And please continue to tune in to some great interviews coming up and more great information at amatterofmusic.com.